What radio? The music you want.
With your host, Keys Dan.
Oh, I'm a failure because I haven't got a brain.
RadioWhat.com.
What would you do with a brain if you had one?
What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Famous? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. Yes, and maybe you can have me at your next event. Wedding season is back. I'm doing a lot of weddings on Saturdays. So a lot of my Saturdays are filled with that. Now, today on the program, Myra Huston. Why is that name familiar? It's my mom. For those of you that don't know, Myra Huston's going to be on the program. I'm kind of scared because I didn't know my mother before I was born, and who knows what story she's going to come up with. So Myra Huston on the What Makes You Famous program. Coming soon. We have that to look forward to. This week's shows, let's see. My one public show is Friday night at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas. That's the regular Friday night show. They have a full bar, the kitchen, hamburgers, chicken wings? I like the chicken wings. And Jersey Girl pizza. You might want to try some of that. People are raving about the Jersey Girl pizza. And from what I understand, it's not me. It's science. You know, the more you eat, the more you can drink. You know, just drink responsibly. A message from Keys Dan. There you go. They have the pool tournament that's going on every Friday night. So if you want to make some money while you're hanging out at the Rab, you can join the pool tournament and maybe you could make some money. On the party patio at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas, we got shuffleboard, two foosball tables, darts, giant Jenga game, checkers. Fantastic. Always something to do while you're waiting to sing a song with me. It's the Video Dance Party Karaoke Jam at the Rab, Friday night from 8 p.m. till almost 2 in the a.m. All right, I think I've delayed it enough. It's time to get into it with Myra Huston. Mama. Calling Myra Huston now.
Hello.
Myra Huston, please.
Yes, this is her.
Mama.
Hi, hon.
It's your sonny boy.
Oh, I know who it is.
The What Makes You Famous podcast.
I know. Are you going to edit it if I don't know, whatever. I'm going to be as honest as I can.
I don't edit anything.
You don't?
Nope. There you go. So yeah, just I'm pretty trepidatious on this one. As doing it with my brother, it was one thing because he's more of a contemporary with me. But then my mother, you're a child of the 60s. I didn't know you before I was born. So
that's right.
I may learn things that I cannot unlearn that should not be learned. That's
right.
I may still at 50 be too young to know some things that my mother has done.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. So you don't edit at all in case there's something that you may not want to send out there.
It's all up to you. It's your story. This is your story, and we have begun.
Okay.
So give the people a little idea of who you are, Myra Huston. The blurb, the bio, yes.
Who am I? What am I? Who am I? Well, let's see. I'm a woman, educated woman, alcoholic, drug addict at points in my life. And probably this is going to be my story about that because I'm hoping and this is probably the biggest hope I have, is that at some point, listening to my story and what I've gone through, that I can help somebody else. I think that's the whole point to this, or the whole premise to this. There's things you're going to hear that you never knew that I've done. I'm not hurting anybody, so, there's nothing that I would say that would hurt someone else. The only person I've hurt is me, and plus, of course, the people I've damaged on the way, which I've wholeheartedly apologized throughout this whole ordeal. Who am I? I lived, I worked, I was highly educated, I was a professor of nursing. So, I've dealt with a lot of life, I've dealt with a lot of death, but through it all, I never learned, really. It's kind of like you're on the other side of the mountain, it can't happen to you, that kind of thing. It's like with anybody. It can't happen to you, or it can't happen. It's not your thing. I've been a cancer survivor, 24 years now. I've survived cancer. So I faced death, and I think that didn't faze me. So anyway, I'm retired now, and that was after 55 years of working, and I've worked my whole life. I was at points in my life, I was a single mom. I was with someone most of the time, but it wasn't even being with somebody. It was like, you're a single mom. You have to provide. So, there was no ifs, ands, or buts. It was either I provided or my kids didn't eat. So anyway, that's what else do you want to know?
Myra Huston, Mama, let me first off say I appreciate you. I thank you. I wouldn't be the person that I am without you. You worked hard, as far as I could see. From a child's point of view, you provided a good childhood. We were never wanting for really anything. Okay, let's say Christmas holidays. The term was always, we made out like a bandits. The kids made out like bandits because Mom worked hard to provide for us. But that's my story. This is your story, and I don't. I could call you Mom, but I could probably call you Myra Huston, because that way people know this is Myra Huston's story, and you haven't always been Myra Huston. Let's begin at the beginning. Where were you born and when?
I was born in 1949 in New York City, New York. My father worked in a laundry, and he had a dry cleaning business. And my mother was actually an alteration person in that dry cleaning business. There was a bit of a sordid avenue that they took in New York. When you had a dry cleaning business, and back in the 40s, there was a bit of sordid negotiations that went on. So rapidly, they had to move. Now, before then, so that you know, my family has a really colorful history going back and forth to Cuba. And the reason they ended up here was literally because of a very horrible accident that happened, and my mother lost her brother and 3 other people in the family in that accident. So they ended up here. All of them ended up here in Key West, believe it or not. And then my mother went up to New York. She got married to my father at that time. It was in 1946 or 7. Or something of that nature, maybe 48, that they got married up there in New York. Well, by the time I was 2 or 3 years old, we had already left New York and came down here to Miami, in not a very ritzy area of town. We lived in downtown Miami, and I went to Jesu Catholic school for the first year of my life, or for the first school year of my life. And I remember the nuns not being very nice to me because, of course, I was a devil in disguise, I think, even then. And from there, we went and moved into Northwest Miami, another not a very lucrative area of town, but, it was home. I went to school like any other kid. I wasn't a good kid. I mean, I did do well in school. I was, at that point, I did want to go to college, and believe it or not, I did have the opportunity. I had a scholarship, an athletic scholarship, to be able to go. But that was not in the books for me. I got married and quickly was divorced because he decided that there was someone else in his life. And that was the end of that. And unfortunately, Danny, you were the product of that. And he never really saw you. He never really had anything to do with you. And neither did the family. Well, but anyway.
I'm already learning things about you that I did not know. I'm learning things about my grandparents, who I affectionately knew as mommy and Poppy. So your dad's name is?
My father's name was Berardo Mesa.
Berardo.
And he was Berardo, and they called him Tito as a nickname. But he was actually dropped off, so that you'll know, he was dropped off on a stairwell. Did never have the opportunity to go to school. I think he went maybe to second grade, and that was it. But he taught himself how to read and write. When he came to this country, the only thing he knew how to say was ham and eggs. And that's the God's honest truth. At that point, my mother always tells me, he says he ate ham and eggs because that's all he knew how to say. Ham and eggs, ham and eggs. And I think he got sick of ham and eggs.
Okay. The way I heard it was ham and cheese. So
ham and cheese, ham and eggs.
Ham and eggs. Okay. I have heard a bit of that story, but I didn't know about the leaving on the doorstep. Was he left on a doorstep in Cuba? Or was
he was left on a doorstep in Cuba.
In Cuba.
And he was left on a doorstep in Cuba. He was a baby. He was maybe 2 years old. And so that you'll know, this went to the grave with both the man that raised her and his birth mother. They figure that the man that raised him was his father, was actually his father, out of wedlock. Or what can I say? It was an out of wedlock type thing. And so he was not a married man at that time. He lived with his mother. And then later, when my father was a little bit older, he met a lovely woman. Her name was Fela. And they got married, and that's the lady who raised him. And that's who I knew as really my grandmother. Okay. Although I knew his real mother, she never really cared for me. So, she was always more in favor of my aunt's son, Gilly. But, and that was another story all in itself, that part of the family. And it was a sad situation, but it was something that, we had to live through. And we all did, And it was simple as that. My dad was not a very affectionate person. He really wasn't. I think he was more at the end, he loved my youngest child, Heather. Mm-hmm. And, he was really affectionate towards her. And he was affectionate towards you guys, too, towards you and your brother. Whereas he didn't show that for me. I was really much more, standoffish type thing with me. But, that was how he was raised. There was no changing him. Wasn't that he didn't provide. I mean, we didn't have a lot of anything. But, I never went hungry. I can say that. I went hungry after I had you guys. I went plenty hungry then. But you know what? It's no big deal. I'm still here. Yeah. Like the song says, I'm still standing.
Well, with hindsight, I guess I could see the relationship that you had with Poppy, with Berardo. And I could see that. And so, did he go straight from Cuba to New York, or did he go by way of Key West as well?
No, he went straight to New York.
Straight to New
He
York.
he had all his papers and everything. He was going to New York because his birth mother was up there.
Gotcha.
So when they lived in the apartment, and then, another story is how badly she treated Mommy. It was horrible. It was awful.
Oh.
But my mother never said a bad word about her. She just put up with it. She was not a nice woman. She really wasn't. But she was a very beautiful woman, I'll tell you that. She dated a lot of actors and very beautiful. To the day that she died, she was gorgeous. Even my aunt was very pretty till the day she died.
Wow.
But anyway, my father's supposedly real sister or half sister, I don't know. We don't know. But anyway,
Yeah, I know. I've tried to look up my ancestry, and I think I have roots like a radish on both sides because I can't go.
Sides.
I can't go too far on my biological father's side either.
No, and you know what? I don't know either. I can't answer that because I don't know. I don't know their thing. I know that I think there was somebody named Judy, and I have no idea who the heck it was. I can't remember. Your grandfather was horrible. Your grandmother was a little better, but your grandfather, holy crap. Okay. He was bad news. Bad news bears.
All right. Well, I'm learning a little bit more then, because I hardly knew them. I think I knew Ada. Ada was
she was nicer. She was your grandmother.
I never knew his name at all. My grandfather on that side. Name.
If I think it was John.
John.
If I'm not mistaken, it was John.
All right. Well, let's get back into you. I know our stories are intertwining, Mama, Myra Huston.
It's kind of going through the flow here. So anyway, after that,
you've got a little bit about your father, and how about your mother's journey from Cuba to the United States?
Yeah, my mother's journey was a little different. She's more educated. She actually ended up in Key West and went to high school there because she was a kid. You got to remember. She was a young girl when she got married to my father. So, she had to stay with my aunt in Key West, went to high school there, graduated from high school, Key West High, and then she went on to New York and then got married at that point. But her travels were a little bit different.
Yeah, what took her to New York?
My father. That's where they got married.
Okay, so where did they meet?
They met in Cuba. They met actually in a bus stop. She was 13 or 14 years old, and he was maybe 17 or 18. And they met her. She was waiting for a bus, and he met her at a bus stop. It was literally at a bus stop, and that's how they met. And he happened to be friends with her brother. His brother, the one that he was raised with. Remember, he was an orphan, dropped off in the stairs on the steps. So that family that he was raised with, that woman had 3 other kids besides raising my father. So there was 3 other kids. There was Gonzalito, Neri, and Alidia. So those were the 3 kids. Well, Gonzalito, which was his, I guess, half-brother. I don't even know what the heck to call him.
Right. Well, for all intents, let's call him brother.
Yeah, brother. He was friends with my mother's brother. They were friends when they were young. And so that's how my mother really got to know my father. While she was a kid, she was just a young girl, unheard of. You don't go out at that age. Mm-hmm. Especially then, you had the troubadour of chaperones with you. So anyway, that's how they met. And she ended up marrying him in New York. We ended up in Miami. Mm-hmm. I ended up getting married, not going to college. And as the story goes, it didn't last very long.
Well, what was your trajectory when you got out of high school? And you say you were an athlete in high school. What kind of athlete were you?
I did gymnastics. I did track and field, volleyball, softball. I was very active and dance. So I actually got an athletic scholarship so that I could go and become a teacher.
That's
That
what you
was-
wanted to be when you grew up.
No, yeah, that's actually what that's not what I wanted to be.
But you were on track for that.
I was on track. That was the point, but I veered off and got married.
Okay.
Had a son, which I dearly love.
The person you're talking to. Now,
The person
how did you meet my father?
Lord have mercy. In Summerland Key, I won't even say it.
In the
I can't
Florida
say
Keys.
the word.
Okay.
In the Florida Keys, I met this guy on a motorcycle. And this guy happened to be your father.
Okay.
He was much older than I was. A lot older.
About 10 years older, right?
More than that.
Okay.
I think a little bit more than that. And then, he wanted to, of course, get married. And my mother kept saying, I'm in no hurry, no hurry, no hurry. But I ended up getting married right out of high school. I mean, the month after. So that was a very fast moving thing. And I was divorced I was separated within a year.
Okay.
After that point, I had you, obviously. I was pregnant with you. And had you, and I was happy. I had a baby.
Hey, Mazel Tov.
Mazel tov. I did. I had a baby boy. And all was well. I mean, I was moving along, like they say. Started dabbling in drugs, and I can understand that the first time.
At this point, where were you staying, and who were you staying with? Since you were newly divorced, I guess.
In an apartment. I was in an apartment. Let me go ahead and call it. It was a room. A room with a small bathroom.
I think we've all been in a room before.
Yeah.
If you're in your early 20s, if that. Yes.
I wasn't even that. Yeah.
So you're in a room, and
I was in a room.
The bombshell. You dabbled in
working,
drugs.
Yeah,
how did
working.
That? Okay, what job did you have?
I was working in a factory, and I was washing hair. I was working in a factory
in Miami.
In Miami.
Okay, how did you get to Summerland Key?
And because we would go to Ramrod Key in the summertime.
Okay.
And
my grandparents always had a place there.
Yeah, your grandparents, we had a place in Ramrod Key, and Grandma and Grandpa, my grandma and grandpa had a place in Summerland, and that's where I met your father.
Okay, there we go.
So moving forward,
please.
I can remember the first time I had I was a sickly child when I was young. I had multiple surgeries on my ear, and I remember my grandmother in Cuba always giving me wine with raw egg in it to make me stronger. So
is that a religious thing, or is that a
no? That was an old wives thing. So every day, that's what I would have: wine with a raw egg in it. There was no salmonella back then, buddy. Okay.
Oh yeah, of course there wasn't.
Because here I am. Anyway, so that I can remember then, and my first drunk, I was 15 or 16. I think that was my first drunk. After that, after I had you, I did start dabbling in drugs. I worked in a factory, and Quaaludes was the thing back then.
Quaaludes, okay.
Quaaludes,
and this is what year?
This was probably 72, 74, maybe.
Okay, what kind of a factory were you working in?
It was an electronics factory.
Okay.
But anyway, so that was what I did. I worked there. I cleaned bathrooms at 3 a.m. In other words, to get more money.
Mm-hmm.
And during that interim, I met my second husband. That was Larry. And him I met at a party. And I can honestly tell you that was like Cupid's arrow. In all sincerity, it was like Cupid's arrow. It was like a shot in the gut. I don't understand, and all of a sudden it was just like, whoa, here he is. And we took off together. I left you with Mommy for about 6 months or so while we went by car and ended up in Indianapolis.
How did you get to why in Indianapolis?
Because my cousin was there. Patsy and Mercy were both there. So I ended up there and started working. I had left the factory, the factory, and started working at a grocery store up there and at a truck stop.
Okay.
And lived in another room.
Okay, but this time it was with Larry.
Yes, that's correct.
Now I have heard the story of the love at first sight. That it was like a shot, like you saw him across the room, and
that's correct. Yeah.
He knocked you off your feet.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And that romance, how did it go? You went to Indiana, and how did things go up there?
It was all right up there. It was good up there, and then it was cold, and I wasn't used to the cold. So the second things started going downhill. I don't know if the shot started leaving or what the heck happened, but about the second winter, I said, I'm leaving. I'm gone. I got on a Greyhound bus with you, and I left.
Oh, by this time I was with you in Indiana?
Oh, yeah. You were already with me.
Okay.
In fact, your Christmas, thank God, because I didn't have any money. Thank God I won the first place in the truck stop. And the first place was, I don't know how many books of green stamps. And with those green stamps, I went to the green stamp store because that's what you used to do back then. I went to the green stamp store, and that was your Christmas. I bought all sorts of toys with those damn green stamp books.
For those that don't know, S&H green stamps, they were given away at certain stores, mostly grocery stores. You buy a certain amount, and they had no dollar value on their own, but you could use them at certain stores that accepted S&H green stamps. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, they had like these merchandise places, and they had all sorts of things, toys, and so anyway, all those books went to toys. That were your toys, your Christmas.
Thank you.
And up to I was so blessed, at the point that I could give you Christmas. That was a time when I was eating hot dogs and making you homemade soups and freezing them because I really didn't have any money, and I had to also go on welfare at that point. Mm-hmm. Don't ask me where Larry was. I can't even answer that because I don't know.
Officially, you were still married?
Yeah, we were married for 7 or 8 years, I think it was.
Oh, okay. Officially, you were courting then at that point?
Yeah. No, we got married. We got married at a courthouse.
In Indiana?
In Indiana.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know when, and I couldn't even answer you when, what year or anything like that because I can't remember. And we stayed together for 7 years. Now 7 or 8 years in, but he was gone. He left.
What kind of work did he do?
He worked in a grocery store.
Okay.
I won't mention the name, but he did work in a grocery. Yeah, he worked in a grocery store. He was a stockman in a grocery store. And I don't know where he went. Anyway, he met someone else, and that was it. He was in and out quite a bit in the house. We came back down to Miami, bought a house, thought everything was going to go well, and it ended up poopy again. So, that's when he met the woman that he married, I guess. I don't know if he married her or didn't. I couldn't answer you.
Well, I remember that house in Carroll City, and that was a good time in my life. I remember a very happy childhood in Carroll City. There was, and it was a melting pot of people on that street. Right. White, black, red, brown. Everybody. I think we had the whitest kid named Philip. He was on the corner. And he was, it looked like he was straight from England. And then we had all on the spectrum, and we all got along.
Yes.
We all got along. I remember chickens. I remember Braulio.
That's right. He was across the street.
Across the street. And,
Yeah.
and my brother, he came about. And
Yes, he did.
We were
He
living in that time, and we stayed together in the room. I remember the house wasn't huge, but it was a home, and you kept it that way. You made it that way. So,
Right.
yeah, you did
At
good.
that point, you didn't realize all that was going on between him and I never said anything. And I think that your brother found out about who his father was not too long ago. Not too long ago, he found out what kind of a character he was. Not a nice man. But, I never said anything. I never wanted to say anything. And I think Mommy was the one that told him. In fact, she just told me yesterday or the day before what she had said to your brother. And I said, Ma, I never said that to him. I never told him anything. I never said anything bad about the man. She says, I wanted him to know who he was. And I said, well, I think he knew. I think he learned at the end who he was, that he was a bitter man. But, that's neither here nor there. We did the best we could. How's that?
Yeah, I always felt like he was our friend. He would play with us, but I don't think he did very well with you in the relationship. He had a good relationship with his boys, and I know he wasn't biologically my father, but I considered him my father for the longest time, and even took his last name for a while. And
rightly so, and that's fine.
Yeah, but I got the sense that he didn't treat you the way a woman should be treated, a way a wife should be treated. So,
yeah, that's all right.
It's not, but I guess we survive. Continue.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
No, and you survived. And
anyway, the drug use continued.
So were you using with him?
Oh yeah, with him, yes. With him, that was a lot of smoking pot, and still Quaaludes were very popular then.
I remember the smell of marijuana in the house quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I like the smell. I still like the smell. If it's good, it's good. And I'm all for legalization. Even though I never ever did.
I know it's wild. I have you who has never tried or done anything, and then I have your brother who has. And it's funny because I at one time said, well, I have one son who's not an alcoholic and the other one who could be one. And then they told me, they said, well, the one who's not an alcoholic doesn't know whether he is or isn't. I said, well, I guess you're right.
Right. And okay, I did have a half a beer one time when I was 21 and I passed out, and I never wanted to have that feeling again. So I never did. I never tried it. That's my rebellion against my mama. And we're talking to my mama, Myra Huston. And I
guess you're right. I guess that might be your rebellion. But anyway, here came the 80s. I was long separated for quite a while. And I met another guy working at the same damn factory that I was before.
and you were still working at this factory all through the 70s and even into the 80s.
And into the 80s,
That's
right.
staying power. Hey, good on you. That's a hard-working lady. Hard-working person, really. Yeah.
And during that time, too, by the way, I started going to college.
Oh, okay. What kind of schooling did you get?
I was working towards my nursing. And it took me a long time to get my first degree. It was a long time. Probably about a good 15 years.
But you started in the mid-'80s.
I started in the 70s.
In the 70s, so sporadically, a class here, a class there.
A class there, yeah.
And
I
at
could
different
afford
schools?
No, it was usually Miami-Dade. It was Miami-Dade, and then I did a few classes in Broward Community.
Okay.
And then back to Miami-Dade. So that's where I did my AA at.
Very good. Well, okay, so you met your third husband.
That's right.
And how did that romance go?
Well, that was just a marriage of convenience. Let's put it that way.
Oh.
It was convenient. He made good money, and that was good. I needed that. And I don't think he was good to you guys. I really don't.
No, now that was a complete opposite. We were so used to my brother's dad, Larry. We were so used to that, and we were so used to having fun with him. And then we got a more serious Ray, and it's not that he was mean to us or anything. We got the sense that he was more for you. He was more for the marriage than for the fatherhood. Although I love my sister Rachel as well. She was, a nice byproduct of that is that, hey, now I have a sister. He came with a girl. So that was nice, and so it was you and him and us three children, and in a really nice neighborhood and a really nice house, up to Fort Lauderdale. And I saw that he provided very well, and I hope that he treated you. I hope that he treated you well.
He was good. He was. Let's put it this way. I guess maybe he was good. He was fine. He was fine, and he was in his career, and I was trying to work towards mine, and the drugs came in again.
Oh.
And this time the drugs were a little heavier.
And this is the both of you as well?
Oh, yeah. This was in the 80s. So I think you mentioned something with your brother about the dollar bill being full of cocaine.
No, I don't remember that. I think he mentioned it.
Yeah, he mentioned it. Okay, well, then that I can honestly say was the next phase of my life. Okay. So
how did that treat you?
Interesting. All the time. It started getting really heavy, and it was an interesting phase. I did work for a different company at that point, still going to school, trying to get the degree. Finally, that relationship ended, and I stayed single. The whole situation with the drugs continued.
Well, how did that relationship fall apart? I never could figure that out. If you were both into the same things, but how did that fall apart?
It just, I don't know. I can't answer that one because I never got a reason as to why.
Was it your drug use, or was he in it as well?
He was in it as well, so it didn't really, it wasn't, I don't know. I can't, he never gave me an answer as to why. What happened, and that was the end of it. There was another woman involved, and it was the end of it. Mm-hmm. In fact, I found out, in all sincerity, he took me to Disney World. And at Disney World in Orlando was where he told me. And here I am in Orlando. How many miles away from Miami? And, he tells me that the marriage is over. I said, oh, great, you drive me up to freaking bumfuck Egypt to tell me the marriage is over. Why didn't you just tell me in my backyard,
That's a very corporate way of firing someone.
Isn't that?
Take them to a very public place and everything's nice. And, oh, by the way, you're fired.
Yeah, isn't that the most bizarre thing I've ever heard in my life? And that was the end of it. I said, okay, and that was the end of it. I think we were divorced in less than 2 months.
Okay.
It was over.
I'll remind everybody this is your side of the story, and And
there's always two sides to every story.
Ray, you're invited to come on the podcast, and if you want to tell your side, that'd be fine.
Yeah, there's always two sides to every story. I need to take the blame also. As always, there's always two sides. I never say that one person did something wrong. There's always two.
But you did get some kind of a closure. There was another woman involved. Oh, okay. Yeah. That was the reason. Yeah. Got it.
Right. And then I stayed single. I said, that's the end of that ball game. Never expecting another ball game to start. Continued with the partying atmosphere. And, there was lots of other different kinds of drugs. I mean, there was uppers and downers, and all sorts of things that were being ingested. And I'm being honest, Danny. I don't want any recourse on this, and I didn't hurt anybody, but I will tell you this much. I did, for a period of time, I stopped a little bit, especially when I was pregnant again. I got pregnant. I lost a baby.
I did not know this.
I know you guys didn't know any of this. That's a hurtful part. I met a wonderful individual, and I never, in all sincerity, and let me go ahead and try and clear myself here. In all sincerity, never expected for that to happen. For him to come along. I didn't want the relationship. He was much younger than me, and I kept saying no. And finally, it was Mommy. Mommy was the one who told me. And these were her exact words to me. She says, if you have 5 good years with him, it's 5 more years of goodness that you've ever had in your life. And I have to say that's true. That was true. That was a very true saying, because I never really had 5 years of happiness in any relationship. It was always very volatile in some cases, ambivalence in others. So, it was good. It was interesting, and we had a very good wedding. It was actually a wedding, and it was a lot of fun, and he was much younger than me, and finally I accepted, and we got married. And
Mazel tov.
And it was
unexpected.
It was unexpected, and very good times. And so anyway, got married, and got pregnant. I lost the baby, and I said, "That's it. I can't do this again." I couldn't get pregnant again. I said, "I can't do it again." And we talked about adoption, and somehow we got a baby, and I was blessed. I mean, we saw her born. And it's funny because, and at that point, by the way, I was a very clean individual at that point.
Good. How did that come about? Was that with intervention, or was that on your own?
What's that?
Cleaning yourself up. No, cleaning yourself up.
I don't know. It just happened. I think it just happened.
So no meetings or?
No. Just, I guess, a decision on my part.
Good. Okay. Continue.
So anyway, but there was still drug use.
Oh. So not completely clean.
Not completely clean. We're still talking the 80s and 90s.
There's different levels of drugs. Marijuana is about to be legalized everywhere.
No. It was more heavy than that.
Okay.
On both parts, by the way.
Oh.
Anyway, the fun continued.
Okay.
The fun continued. And then my little daughter came along.
Hey, hooray.
The fun still continued, but my daughter was there, so it wasn't the same kind of fun. It was sporadic fun. And then, I guess probably at about 6 years old, and the drinking started. I was always a party girl, so don't get me wrong. The parties always continued. And then the drinking started. And it was drinking. And I can honestly tell you, there at the end, or as time went by, and I think there was about a 20, maybe a little less than that, maybe a 15-year span of heavy, heavy drinking. Heavy drinking.
And how did that affect your life?
Oh, it was horrible. It was awful. It was, and I try and explain what it is that an alcoholic feels, or a situation like that feels, and it's like you're on a freight train, and that train is just going, and you're going and going and going, and the only thing is important is you stick your hand out just to get a bottle. It didn't matter what kind of bottle. Just give me a bottle and grab me another one and get me another one. That train is still going. It's still going and going and going, and nothing can stop it. Nothing, not a person, not a thing, not anything in this world can stop that feeling that you have.
And what kind of work were you doing at this time?
I was working as a nurse. I had already gotten my degree. I got a master's degree in nursing. I got an MBA. I got my second master's drunk, totally drunk. I don't know how I passed it. I don't know, but I did. And I was a functioning drunk. I didn't go to work drunk. You know, I didn't, my patients were number 1, 2, and 3. I mean, I never mistreated a patient, never took a drug from them, nothing like that ever happened. Hmm. But I did drink. I drank when I got home, and I drank a lot.
But you still had the wherewithal to know not at work. Keep it away from
never,
work.
Never at work.
How does an alcoholic turn it on and off? And you already have self-proclaimed yourself as an alcoholic.
Oh, yeah, I'm an alcoholic.
There is a problem. But an alcoholic, I've always thought, I guess there's different levels on the spectrum, but I've always thought that the drink came first, no matter what. And you were able to turn it off.
When I was working, I was able to turn it off. Now, there was a point there that I left that particular position, and that's when I couldn't turn it off. It was a day and night type thing. Now, there was times during that time where what it is you drink till you black out. You get up, you drink again until you black out. And you're called a functioning alcoholic is what it is, but you're still an alcoholic. I was a blackout, fall down drunk, period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
So did you find yourself waking up in places you didn't know how you got there? Yeah. That kind of thing?
Oh, yeah.
Was it always at home?
I was at home. I was arrested. I got a DUI. Heather actually found out through a friend in Texas, because apparently, people down here, they look to see who's gotten arrested or something. And she got a call from a friend in Texas that I had been arrested, and that's how my husband found out.
Okay.
That I was in jail. And that I was actually in the pokey.
How long ago was this?
Oh, God, that was 6 years ago? 6 years ago? 6 or 7 years ago.
And was that your low? Was that your rock bottom at that point? 6, 7 years ago? No, I continued. Bump in the road.
Oh, yeah, no, after, and even during the time that I had to do, what they did was, it was called Back on Track, was what I did. I had to do community service. I had to have one of those blow things, and your car doesn't start unless you blow in it. But at that point, you didn't have to have, now they have cameras to see who's blowing into the machine. Back then, they didn't have a camera, so you could have anybody blow into it. It didn't matter. I didn't never have anybody blow into it, but I'll tell you what, I had a breathalyzer here, so I could drink my ass off, and in the morning, I would be clear. I knew exactly what time to stop drinking, so that in the morning, I would be clear. I could start the car and go to work. Is that insane or what? Is that insanity?
Scientific. No, that is an alcoholic. That's a functioning alcoholic. That's classic. I've heard it so many times on so many different podcasts and so many different places. I did not know.
It's insanity is what it is. It's insanity. I had a time. Perfect. So I would go to work. I was fine. Then I'd come home, and that was it. Now, at that point, I was getting progressively worse. Now, I left that position. And I was getting progressively worse, and I started
Now,
someplace
this
else.
position, was that a nurse in a hospital or a home health
No,
nurse?
I was a
or
professor. I was already a professor.
Okay.
Yeah. So I left that position was gone. I retired from it. And I started, at that point, I was really hitting the bottle. Wine, 1.75 bottles was nothing. It was two a night, 3 a night. It didn't matter. It was a lot. Falling down, finding me passed out in the middle of the bathroom down here, poor Johnny, having to pick me up. It was horrible. Anyway, he said, you're going into rehab. So I went to rehab, went to a beautiful place. It was gorgeous. It was nice. I learned a lot, but it didn't learn me. I got out of there after 30-something days, and I lasted 6 days. And I was back on the bottle. And it was heavy and hot, and I mean, it was downhill to a point where I was sleeping with a bottle.
Now, were you retired at this point?
I was still working, but in a different capacity, only on weekends.
So a weekend nurse in the hospital or
no, I was a weekend nurse on the road.
A road nurse. Well, okay, and that involves a lot of driving, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but guess what? I had all week to get drunk.
Yes.
And then I didn't have to get drunk on the weekend. But I had all week to get drunk. On Monday morning, that was it. Boom, hit the bottle. It got so bad at that point, and that was after I came out of that rehab. It was probably a good 2 or 3 year stint, where it was bad, real bad, to a point where I couldn't function. I had then left that job. I to retire totally, and I was hitting the bottles straight up. I don't have to have anything to mix anything with. It was a straight up bottle, and that was 2, 3, 4 bottles a day.
But Myra, up to that point, you were a scientist. You knew your body. You knew when the alcohol would go in, feel so good. You get that feeling you want, and then you knew when when it would leave your body, and then you can go off and go to work. That's science.
At that point, yes.
How long did it take to figure out your chemistry?
No time at all. Well, a drunk can figure it out in 10 seconds.
Amazing.
But remember, then I stopped working altogether.
Yeah. Then you had every day, every night.
Every day and every night. And then
how's your poor husband dealing with this?
It was horrible for him. What I put him through, I don't even know why he's here. I still don't know why he's here.
Because he's a good dude.
and he's very much in love with me. Very much in love with me.
How about the daughter? Was the daughter living at home at this point?
She suffered, I think, the most. I really do feel that she suffered the most. She would see me, and it was awful to see. It got to a point where I couldn't write my name. I couldn't talk. I couldn't remember anything. Every day I would lose my keys. Every single day. I would hide them. I wouldn't know where they were. I would hide the bottles. I'd have to go get another one. It was nothing but that giant freight train, and you just keep going. You just keep going. And the almighty, get the bottle, get to and God forbid that the liquor stores were going to be closing. I mean, you had to run out. I don't care if they took my car away from me. Hell, I'd walk or I'd take a bike. Didn't bother me any. Go ahead. Take whatever you want from me. I'll do it another way. And that's an alcoholic. And it was insanity is what I was going through. Total insanity. I couldn't stop. I couldn't function without a bottle. And I couldn't stop. So anyway, there came at one point, Johnny was sitting there telling me, you gotta I mean, he wanted to divorce me, but he never did. He never made the move. I said, go, I don't care. I got my bottle. Who cares? My best friend is here. So, anyway, one day, and I still to this day, by the way, so that I have this huge thing that I had my keys always tied to. And I still have it in the car. I won't let go of it. I said, I will never lose this key ring because it's probably 10 inches big or more, maybe 12 inches big. It's huge. It's gigantic. I have it inside my car as a reminder of the idiot that I was. And
what is it?
It's a keychain, what my keys used to hang on, and I would lose it every single day. Every day. I would lose my keys to my car because they would hide them or take them away from me, or I would hide them and I couldn't find them. The whole 9 yards. So one day, I went down with my big blue keychain, and I told Johnny, I said, I want to go. I want to go to rehab. And that was almost 2 years now that I said that. And I went to rehab for the second time to the same place. And to this day, I can honestly tell you, I don't know what stopped me. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what the rock bottom was. What was the turning point? Because here you are, you're retired. You have nothing else to do, no responsibility to anyone but yourself. Oh.
I was dying. I weighed less than 150 pounds. I was dying. I didn't eat. I did not eat nothing. Do you know what nothing is? Nothing. Not one morsel of food would go down my throat, because if it did, I would throw it up. So I was dying, and I don't know what stopped me. I don't know whether it was a ray from heaven. The only thing I can tell you is you know how that movie in Forrest Gump, and he's running and running and running across the country, and he keeps running, and he's still running and running, and all of a sudden he says, I think I'll go home.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I think I'll go home. So I went to rehab. I stayed there in rehab